What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to give you the all bust fantasy team, and what I mean by that are players that you drafted relatively high that have been significantly underperforming this season. They're probably one of the most frustrating fantasy players you've dealt with all year, and we all go through it. So today I'm going to break down those players for you, and let me know in the comments if you own any of these players and what you did with them. Before we jump into this video, make sure you leave a like, subscribe if you haven't, and give us a second to listen to our video sponsor. Introducing our new sponsor to the channel, we're talking about Thrive Fantasy. Using promo code FP100 with a minimum deposit amount of $10, receive a 100% deposit match up to $100 and 2 free $20 contest tickets. Thrive Fantasy is a daily fantasy sports and esports app for player props. This simple to use app eliminates the countless hours of research and focuses only on top tier athletes. Choose 10 of 20 available player props to build your lineup based on simple over and under bets and get points for the fantasy values assigned to them. Hit the most props in your selection process and win a share of the prize pool. This app is extremely simple to use and you can make some serious cash. The first night I used it, myself and FP Don came first and second in the contest. Remember, use code FP100 and receive a 100% deposit match up to $100 and 2 free contest tickets. This is free money, guys. Make sure you take advantage of this and show us your fantasy hockey skills. The first player for the all-bust team and the number one center is Elias Pettersson of the Vancouver Canucks. At ADP 39, he was off the board in the 3rd and 4th round, probably drafted as either your center 1 or center 2, and he's been a complete disaster this season. With just 17 points in 36 games, Pettersson's off to a terrible start. Last season he was pretty good, 26 games played, 25 points, a lot of hopes for him going into this season. But over his last 60 games is where you really see how bad he's been. He has just 38 points, a 0.63 points per game average, compared to his previous 139 games, where he's at 0.95 points per game. Now, his lack of production could be associated to a variety of factors. He was injured, he dealt with COVID, the team as a whole has been significantly underperforming for the last 2 years, but nevertheless, Pettersson has just been an overall fantasy bust. Lack of power play production from him, where he used to flourish 2-3 years ago. His shooting percentage was up at 20%. It's now down to about 7.7%. I do think this might rise at some point, but if you watch the Vancouver games, he's just struggling. He can't get into the zone. He's not finding good lanes to the net. His power play opportunities are just lacking. Personally, I would hold on to him. He has no trade value and you can't really move him, but he's a perfect player for the all-bust fantasy team. The next player for the all-bust fantasy team is Tyler Seguin of the Dallas Stars. He was once a huge offensive threat in the NHL, former 40 goal scorer and 2-time 80-point producer. He's on pace this season for just 34 points. At ADP 53, he was off the board in the 4th and 5th round, probably drafted as your center 2 or center 3, and he's just been in huge disappointment. Now, there was a lot of risk with Seguin going into this season. He only played 3 games last year, so we weren't really sure what we were going to get out of him this year. Dallas has also been a mess offensively. They ranked 25th in the league for goals for, and that's definitely not helping his production. We noticed the downhill trend started in about 2019, where he had just 17 goals in 69 games. His 30-goal seasons seem to be put behind him now, and he's still 74% rostered on Yahoo. At this point, I would probably drop him depending on the size of your league. If you're in a 12-team league or more, it's probably best to hold on to him. It really depends on the waiver wires, but I definitely get the frustration. That's why he's on the all-bust fantasy team. The final forward to round out the all-bust fantasy offense is Dominik Kubalik of the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, we know his ADP 139 is really not that early, but we figured that we would add in someone in the mid to late round that you probably drafted. Now, Kubalik has been really bad this season, and we figured with Taves coming back in the lineup and the addition of Seth Jones, which is a legitimate number 1 defenseman, especially for the power play, to the Chicago Blackhawks team, that Kubalik would have a pretty strong season. He's currently at a career low 7.9% shooting percentage, which is well below league average and 6% lower than his career average. He does rank second on the team for expected goals for, given his relatively high shot volume, but he is 7th on the team for points behind players like Brandon Hagel and Kirby Dach, who probably aren't even owned in fantasy. Kubalik has bounced around the lines between line 1, 2, and 3. His lack of production is definitely why he's been moving up and down the lineup and on the first and second power play unit. Without a goal in his last 5 games and just 4 points in his last 13 games, Kubalik is an all-around bust and should be a drop contention in most leagues. Moving on to the defensive core for the all-bust fantasy team, we have Jeff Petry of the Montreal Canadiens. With no Weber going into the season, we figured Petry would be next in line to be the top defenseman in the Montreal back end. We were right about that, but we were definitely wrong about the production from him this season. He has just 3 points in 27 games following 5 consecutive 40-point seasons. Just a huge drop from Petry, and no one really saw this coming. His shot rate's down significantly, and Montreal's scoring as a team ranks 30th in the league. Now, it's important to note that Petry is the team leader in power play minutes and time on ice, so he's still getting the opportunity, but Montreal's lack of offensive production has really thrown him out of fantasy relevancy. If you're in a 12-team league or more, you should probably hold on to Petry just for the upside alone, but if you're in a 10-team league or less, he's definitely worth a drop, as your waiver wires are probably full of defensemen that are better than him. Jumping over to Jeff Petry's D partner, for the all fantasy bust team, we have Jakob Chychrun of the Arizona Coyotes. At ADP 60, he was drafted in the 4th to 6th round, depending on the league size. And fantasy owners who took a flyer on Chychrun last year really reaped the benefits, as he ended as one of the top defensemen in the entire league. He ranked second for shots with 178 and was the driver of the Arizona offense. But this season, he has just a mere 7 points and a league worst minus 29 rating. We knew it was going to be a tough year for the Coyotes, but we didn't know it was going to be this bad. I wasn't recommending Chychrun in preseason just because of how bad the team was, and I knew that he needed some offense to actually produce fantasy-wise. His shot rate remains intact to what it was last season, which is a positive indicator, but the complete lack of offensive firepower on the Coyotes has taken him out of fantasy relevancy. I know, guys, that's my favorite word today. In leagues with plus-minus, is probably worth a drop, but in leagues without plus-minus, you can still roster him. He's playing just under 25 minutes per night. Now, there are rumors for him getting traded. I heard Boston or the Rangers. Now, if that does happen, it will skyrocket his fantasy value, but it's hard to hold on to a player that's contingent on him getting traded to be fantasy relevant again. Alright guys, so to round out this video, the starting goalie for the all-bust fantasy team is Philipp Grubauer of the Seattle Kraken. I really thought in the offseason that he would take less money and sign with the Avalanche. They're a Stanley Cup contending team, and we all saw the season he had last year. But to no surprise, he elected to go with the money and sign with Seattle, and he has been atrocious this season. He was the 6th goalie off the board at ADP 54, ahead of Vezina candidates Jack Campbell, Tristan Jarry, and Igor Shesterkin. This season, he's only posted 5 games above a 900 save percentage in his 15 appearances. Not to mention, he's allowed more goals this season in 26 games than he did all last season in 40 games. Like we always say, goalies are reflective of the team in front of them. We saw that last year with Colorado, and we're now seeing it this year with Seattle. Goalies are thin in fantasy this season, and I'm finding myself struggling in my fantasy teams to find goalies on the waiver wire that are relevant to pick up. But at this point, his goals against average and save percentage justify why he should be dropped, and I'm starting to see him more and more now on my free agency than owned on teams. That'll do it for our all-bust fantasy team video. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. As the fantasy football community prepares you for this season, make sure you click that link in our description and check out all of our content channels. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next one.